Today, I'm sharing an interesting story of love and resilience set during one of the darkest times, war. It's about Ikoma, a young woman, and Yusuf, a soldier, whose connection defied the odds. Stay tuned for this heartwarming tale. Ikoma's heart pounded in her chest as she crouched behind the thick undergrowth, clutching her fishing basket tightly. The echoes of gunfire and heavy shelling reverberated through the forest, mixing with the cries of frightened birds taking flight. Her stomach growled, but fear outweighed hunger. It was the third day without a proper meal, and her parents were too weak to even leave the shelter of their hut. She had to find something, anything, to keep her family alive. The hidden seasonal lake deep within the bush was her only hope. It was a secret known only to the villagers. Despite her trembling hands, she made her way through the dense forest, carefully avoiding the trails where soldiers might roam. She didn't hear him approach. A rough hand grabbed her arm, and she spun around, her eyes meeting the cold, calculating gaze of a Nigerian soldier. His uniform was dirty and torn, his face hardened by war. The rifle slung across his chest glinted in the faint sunlight breaking through the trees. Ikoma gasped and stumbled backward, her knees buckling as her words spun. Darkness enveloped her. When she came to, she found herself lying on the ground, the soldier's rough hands patting her face lightly. "Wake up," he muttered, his voice gruff but strangely tinged with concern. "You fainted. I don't have time for this." Her eyes widened in terror as she scrambled backward, but the soldier grabbed her arm. "Stop squirming," he hissed, glancing around. "You'll attract attention. What are you doing here, girl? Don't you know this is a war zone?" I was fishing," she stammered, her voice barely audible. "My family, they're hungry." The soldier's expression softened, just for a moment, before his hardened mask returned. "Fishing? In the middle of this chaos? You're either brave or foolish. Come with me." Ikoma resisted, her fear growing. "No. I need to go back to my family." "They'll kill you if they find you out here alone," he said sharply, yanking her to her feet. "I'm not asking." The soldiers' troop was a ragtag group of weary men, their eyes hollow from endless days of combat. They looked at Ikoma with a mix of suspicion and indifference as she followed their leader through the camp. He offered no explanation for her presence, and no one dared question him. Ikoma stayed silent, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. But as the days passed, she realized something strange. The soldier, who introduced himself only as Yusuf, wasn't as cruel as he seemed. He shared his rations with her, even when it meant going hungry himself. He taught her how to stay quiet, how to hide, how to survive. "You remind me of my little sister," he admitted one evening as they sat by a dying fire. His voice was softer now, filled with a sadness that seemed out of place in a man like him. "She died in the first attack on my village. That's why I fight." But sometimes, he trailed off, staring into the flames. Ikoma didn't know how to respond. She hated him for taking her from her family, but she couldn't deny the humanity in his eyes. Weeks turned into months, and Ikoma's hope of returning home began to fade. The war raged on, and Yusuf's troop moved from village to village, leaving destruction in their wake. But Yusuf never let her witness the worst of it. He shielded her, protected her, even when it put him at odds with his men. One night, as they camped near a river, Yusuf handed her a small bundle. "Inside are directions to your village," he said quietly. "It's not safe here for you anymore. Go back to your family." Ikoma stared at him in shock. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you deserve a chance to live," he said, his voice breaking. "This war has taken enough. Go before I change my mind." Tears filled Ikoma's eyes as she clutched the bundle to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Yusuf nodded, turning away to hide the pain in his face. As Ikoma slipped into the darkness, she glanced back one last time, her heart heavy with gratitude and sorrow. She didn't know if she would ever see him again, but she would never forget the soldier who saved her life. Ikoma found her way back to her family, who wept with joy at her return. But the war had changed her. She was no longer the frightened girl who had ventured into the bush to find fish. She was a survivor, a fighter, and a witness to both the horrors and the humanity that war could bring. After she returned, she kept his memory alive. She remembered the kind soldier who had spared her life, a man who had reminded her that even in the darkest times, kindness could still shine through. When Ikoma returned home, she could not forget Yusuf, the brave soldier who had saved her during the war. His image lingered in her mind, and she prayed for his safety. She had fallen deeply in love with him, despite the horrors she had witnessed on the battlefield, where so many soldiers had lost their lives. Unbeknownst to her, Yusuf, too, had fallen for Ikoma. He secretly hoped the war would end soon so he could search for her. He often wondered if she felt the same way about him. In his possession, he kept a small calabash she carried the day he found her in the bush, a token that kept her memory alive. One sunny morning, the long-awaited news arrived: the war had ended. The soldiers were ordered to return to the barracks as the nation began its slow process of rebuilding. Yusuf, who hailed from the Middle Belt, wasted no time. With Ikoma's calabash in hand, he set out for her village in Cross River State. The journey was long and arduous. Akanangpa, Ikoma's village, bore the scars of war, ruined houses, shattered lives, and people plagued by poverty and hunger. The air was heavy with despair, but Yusuf, a soldier hardened by battle, remained focused. He found his way to Mr. Monde Kolo, Ikoma's father, an old man who had seen the worst of life. Upon seeing a soldier, Mr. Kolo was gripped with fear and tried to flee, but Yusuf quickly reassured him. "I mean no harm," Yusuf said. "I am looking for your daughter, Ikoma. Is she alive?" Mr. Kolo hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she is alive." Relief washed over Yusuf as he asked to see her. When Ikoma appeared, her eyes widened in disbelief. Yusuf knelt before her and held out the calabash she thought she had lost forever. "Ikoma," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you gave me hope during the darkest days of war. I have come to ask for your hand in marriage." Tears streamed down Ikoma's face as she accepted his proposal. Their union was a bright spark in the village's gloom, a symbol of hope and resilience. In time, Yusuf and Ikoma rebuilt their lives together, proving that even in the aftermath of war, love could thrive and bring healing. The moral of the story is that love can triumph over adversity and serve as a beacon of hope even in the darkest times. It shows the power of resilience, forgiveness, and human connection to heal the wounds of war and rebuild lives. True love is selfless and enduring, capable of bridging differences and creating new beginnings. Thank you for watching this heartwarming story. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to African Tale for more incredible stories from Africa. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us keep sharing these amazing tales. Thank you.